At this hour, the disgraced, twice impeached, 4 times indicted ex-president is staring down a heart-pounding deadline. In T-minus 5 days and 8 hours, Donald Trump must pony up a nearly $500 million bond in his civil fraud case or face the consequences that New York Attorney General Letitia James has said will include seizing Trump's assets, starting with his real estate empire. That looming possibility appears to have sent Donald Trump into a downward spiral, complete with multiple rage tweets and an emergency fundraising text asking donors to help him, quote, keep Tish James's hands off Trump Tower. And now, against that backdrop, Attorney General James is turning up the heat, pushing back on Trump's claim that they are having insurmountable difficulties getting the bond, and that getting one would be a, quote, practical impossibility. In a brand new filing, Tish James has clapped back, accusing Trump's team of faulty logic. Quote, based on the false premise that they must obtain a single bond from a single surety for the entire judgment of $464 million. She suggests simply dividing the bond into smaller chunks among multiple sureties. She calls Trump's bluff on not wanting to do a fire sale to raise money, which the Attorney General says would force her office to do the grunt work of liquidating Trump's assets. And then she hits him where it really hurts, suggesting that something does not add up in terms of Trump's real estate empire. She writes, Trump's defense, quote, boils down to the proposition that sureties have been unwilling to accept Mr. Trump's real estate holdings as collateral in this case. But Trump has offered, quote, no documentary evidence that demonstrates precisely what real property they offered, on what terms, or precisely why the sureties were unwilling to accept the assets. One explanation, she says, could be that Trump's real estate empire is, quote, not nearly as valuable as Trump claims. And that is where we start today with former top official at the Department of Justice and MSNBC legal analyst Andrew Weissmann, plus MSNBC contributor and columnist Charlie Sykes. And with me at the table, MSNBC host and legal analyst Katie Phang. Andrew, I got to start with you because you have Tish James calling Trump's bluff. She also, though, seems to be pointing to something that you have said on our air, which is that something here does not add up. Quote, defendants assert that they are unable to post a bond or a deposit because their assets are tied up in real property rather than cash or liquid securities. The use of real estate as collateral for an appeal bond is hardly impossible as a general matter. And though defendants acknowledge that it is possible to use an irrevocable letter or credit to obtain a bond, they do not explain why a bank would not accept real property to finance that letter of credit. What is it, Andrew, that she's driving at here?
So I think this is something I was saying that just doesn't make any sense at all, because Donald Trump was saying, I don't really have enough cash. And with respect to the real property, that there are companies that are not willing to take real property as collateral to give me a bond. The reason that Tish James and I had been saying that doesn't make any sense is, one, that she is saying, you know, fine, just go ahead and post real property in the court. The court can hold on to the real property. You don't even have to fuss with a bond and surety holder. Just post the real property if there's any equity in it. She also said you can just get a letter of credit from a company and you could have the real estate back that up. Or I proposed you could get a mortgage on real estate and just use the mortgage funds. I mean, all of us who have ever owned a property and haven't been able to buy it outright get mortgages. So he could do all that. And the real issue here is that he may be just too leveraged. In other words, he says he's worth so much, but all of these properties are used to back loans from other institutions. So he may not actually have all that much money, either cash on hand or property that isn't already pledged for other loans. So the reason he's having so much trouble and the reason he might be having this meltdown is he can't post the money himself, and he needs to find a lifeline through some third party who is going to be able to bail him out.
Well, Katie, speaking of that lifeline, earlier today you had Trump retweeting this headline, quote, Republican billionaires rally around Trump. In reality, so far, that has not been the case. I want you to just take a listen.
Are they in the room with us right now?
Are they right here? No. And not only are they not here, but even Fox News has noticed that they are missing. Take a listen.
What is behind their reluctance?
Well, it's as of now, so let's see.
I mean, are they afraid that they might not see it anytime soon? The money, if he even succeeds on appeal, what's
yeah? I mean, that's one thing. I mean, I think I don't want to, I don't want to speak for Bernie Marcus, that's for sure. But just generally, Donald doesn't have a great record at paying back banks over the years, and Donald Trump. So you can sort of surmise from that what you will.
Katie, surmise from that what you will.
He's always been a credit risk. And I think the reason why you see him losing it right now is it's the emperor doesn't have any clothes. I mean, I want to put aside maybe that imagery for a second. So let's maybe do this one. The Wizard of Oz. You look behind the curtains and you see who's been pulling all this, the machinations. It's been the wizard. So with Donald Trump, to Andrew's point, if you're over-leveraged, meaning that you don't really have enough ability to take certain assets like real property, like Trump Tower, for example, we know that he's got a mortgage on that property. We know he has a mortgage on Trump Doral. And how does that operate for him to be able to get somebody to consider him to be a good credit risk? It doesn't. And that's it. It's literally it's not me, it's you conversation that's being had with bond sureties. So when you think about somebody like Donald Trump, who has in every respect associated himself with the imagery of being this big top, gunner of finance and of real estate. And when the reality is coming crashing down, that he doesn't have the ability to satisfy this type of judgment, I don't blame Letitia James for writing this reply that she did. She's saying, look, bonds, billion-dollar bonds exist. And she lists cases. And then she also says, and hey, Judge, by the way, these people that did these affirmations, Gary Giulietti and Alan Garden, Justice Engoron actually found that Gary Giulietti's credibility was lacking. He was an expert witness in the underlying trial. And he didn't bother to mention in his affirmation that he actually makes money in a commission off of Trump. Ding. Number two, Alan Garden, by the way, he participated in the fraud. That was the underlying perpetration of fraud on the people of the state of New York. So even the affirmations are questionable. And so that is the problem for Donald Trump. He cannot find the ability to satisfy any type of demands that are made by legitimate lenders. And I want to emphasize the adjective of legitimate, because it doesn't mean that perhaps there are lenders out there that are willing to give the money to Donald Trump to either, by the way, they're never going to co-sign. Let me be clear. These types of lenders, you're not going to see their signatures, their John Hancocks on any type of papers. This is going to be, here's some cash, have a nice day. And Andrew and I had spoken about this yesterday, that there's not going to be the transparency that the American public needs and deserves to know as to who's giving money to Donald Trump to try to get a bond shirt.
And I want to come back to that question of transparency. But first, I want to talk about something else you said, which is this idea of the perception of Donald Trump, Charlie, versus the reality of Donald Trump. Because, I mean, this is a person who's claimed bankruptcy multiple times before. Why is that not an option here, Charlie?
Well, I mean, first of all, as Katie said, he has been a credit risk for a very, very long time, and the prospect for Donald Trump of declaring bankruptcy on March 25th, 2024 has got to be one of the things that is keeping him up. The man is without shame, but he's not without recognition of the damage that could do, because it does blow up this entire myth. And it has been a myth that he's been created. He's created this empire on a tower of fraud and of lies. But millions of Americans do believe he's a successful billionaire, that his businesses are these magnificent constructions of his own imagination. So that is, in fact, going to weigh heavily on him. But I have to come back to the point that Katie just made here. This is actually a very, very dangerous moment, because the more desperate Donald Trump is, the more likely he is to take desperate measures, including taking money in a very non-transparent way from some of the shadiest characters on the globe. Where is that money going to come from? You can certainly imagine that there would be, potentially including foreign actors who would be more than willing. This would be a bargain for them to buy the kind of influence, to buy the kind of gratitude and leverage that coming forward at this moment would mean. And so you do have to say, what is going to happen over the next week here? Are we going to see Saudi money? Are we going to see Russian money? I mean, this is no longer fanciful, because Donald Trump faces a hard deadline and impossible options unless somebody comes in at the last minute. And who might that somebody be, and what do they want in exchange for their money?